Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are we doing today? I know there's probably a few people that have been wondering what the world's going on, and we are going to dive into some of it. So give me a second while I. Good evening. Yeah. We're gonna talk about some things tonight that might be a little bit hard for people. And again, going back to what can we do? What can we advocate for? And I got off the phone with Sam, and I wanted to share with you that her uncle has passed. She wanted to say and let you guys know that she is grateful for all the prayers that everybody has sent, and saying that she is getting ready to come back. So again, her uncle passed and she's been dealing with that. So we do want to give her a little bit of space, but again, we're doing what we can to help in any way, shape, or form. That being said, things have been brought to my attention. And maybe I'm stepping a little outside my bounds. Maybe I'm not doing everything exactly 100% correct. And this may not be 100% politically correct. But I am actually going to be working close in hand with Sam and her sister to develop new guidelines that I am actually going to take to Capitol Hill. That we are actually going to do what we say we are going to do. When we have family members who are on hospice, and if we're not in the nursing field, we don't truly understand what the standards really are for hospice care. There are some states where it's really good, and there are some states where it may not be as great. However, I do believe there needs to be a federal standard, and it is something that I'm going to be pushing. There needs to be a federal standard for hospice care. And if a company is not willing to live up to those standards, they should not receive certification. Why does this matter to me? Well, when you look at care, any nurse that has done a death watch, which is basically what us nurses would call your end of life care, hospice in some states, they recognize that it is a 24-hour job with two to four nurses switching on and off, being nearby, willing to assist if there is duress on the part of the patient or whatever, and to make sure that there's palliative care that is, how would you put it, that is actually presented and actually utilized. And when you talk about palliative care, I'm not talking about hospice nurses that just show up once or twice a week and say, "Hey, just call us if he's dead." If I was to ever hear a hospice nurse say, "Just call us when he's dead," and they work for me, they'd be fired. No family deserves to have that happen to them. Yeah, I might be on a soapbox. Guess what? For me, I've attended over 400 death watches. I've held the hands of people who are dying because their family couldn't be there. I've given them the morphine. I've given them the ibuprofen. I've given them the Ativan to keep them sedated enough to where their body wouldn't destroy itself or traumatize those that are around. I've done all of it. And when you look at some of the standards that some states have, they they don't it wouldn't even qualify as medical care. They may meet the minimum standards, but minimum don't cut it. And yeah, there's going to be some nurses that jump on. Well, what if? What if we have too many patients? What if we don't have enough nurses to go around? Well, when when you sign up to be a nurse and you go through the schooling, you get your you get your frock, you and you start caring for patients. Before you care for patients, you are given an oath, and you give that oath to do no harm. When you do no harm, whether you may agree or not, if the family member or the person with the power of attorney says that they need to be sedated, or you notice that they need to be sedated, you approach a family member and they said go for it. If you refuse to give the sedation medication, you are doing harm. You're inviting the suffering. When you focus on the things that actually matter to people, if I if I was on my last leg, and you know what, God only knows if today's my last day, but that is everybody. We don't know. Another person that we do need to pray. Another person we do need to pray for is Okie Gal or Sandra O'Donnell. She is one of our friends from Oklahoma. She is going to be having an operation done to figure some issues that she is having out. So she had a conversation with me today. Didn't tell me to tell you this, but I felt it is necessary for people that are going through stuff that we do pray for them. Winks in some states, that's not an option. That's why I believe there needs to be a set of federal standards. And if we have to create a company that can push it through and make it work, I'll do it. I'll find the funding. But substandard care is something that we as nurses or as clinicians, whether you're a doctor, you're a nurse, or you're a certified nurse practitioner, a surgeon, an LPN, it doesn't matter. When you go to work in the hospital and you refuse to do or take part in palliative care, you have become the issue. If you are refusing to do what is ordered or the minimal possible, you are part of the issue. Palliative care must be observed. Well, if it is in a DNR order or in a hospice order, there is no doctor that should ever tell you as a nurse that twice a week for a regular nurse and twice a week for a CNA to come change bed dressings or to come change dressings on an open wound. Once or twice a week is not enough. When you take on that role and you're working as a hospice nurse, I understand it is a hard job. Watching over somebody as they are dying is not for everybody. But if people think that it is okay and that it's not a cause that we should stand for, then I don't know where your humanity is. So I am telling people, if you know of nurses that work with hospice or in and around hospitals, and they work with the hospice wing of the hospital, have them reach out. I want to talk to them. I am going to write a bill over the next couple weeks that is going to talk about building a federal standard. Then I will submit it through my state and local representatives. I will call their offices every day until that bill hits the floor of the House, and I will continue to call it until it goes across the president's desk. That is a bill that needs to be passed, and we need to make sure that we take care of it. Whether the patient's dying of COVID or whether the patient's dying of congestive heart failure or lung cancer or kidney failure or kidney cancer, it doesn't matter what they're dying of. They deserve the rights to actually take part in their care through their power of attorney, and they have the rights for palliative care. And in my opinion, they have to understand what palliative care is. So, guys, as you know, when I'm talking about this kind of stuff, it does drive a lot near and dear to my heart because of the fields that I've came from and what I've done. Technology wasn't my original field. Technology has little to do with what I chose as my profession. But I do believe that the hospice, you can tell a lot about a nation by how they care for their elderly and sick. And I can tell you right now, the elderly and the sick are not being taken care of properly. And Carell, and I do agree with you. I do. But when each state has the ability to willy nilly just change things as they go, that's is wrong. But no, that's I am going to be talking to Sam, and I'm going to talk to her sister and other nurses, doctors, and I am going to build a company that specifically deals with hospice care. The elderly, the sick, and the children need more protection in the country. Absolutely. Mickey, I agree with you 100%. I don't think he wants to lose it, but I don't think that's gonna. I don't think he's gonna have a choice here shortly. Yep. You know, I think it's going to really shock people because I'm willing to take up that kind of fight. Exactly. Politics need to be put aside. When it comes to dealing with the elderly and the sick and our children, it's politics should come second to all of that. But yeah, and technically there is supposed to be a provision, but it was actually crossed out that prevented this from happening. No, you don't. I promise you, I could apply. I if I could do it, I would, and was able to get the plan and everything put together. I could present it and get a $3.5 billion grant from the federal government that never has to be repaid and actually implement it. You don't have to have huge amounts of money. You just have to have a good plan. Yeah, I understand where these nursing homes are charging a whole lot of money. but they're failing people. I agree. And I know people are probably not tuning in because I was kind of on a rant, but you know what? That's the way it goes. So, guys, we anybody who told me that I'd be where I'm at today, I would just laugh at them. I was talking to my parents this afternoon after getting off the phone. I was on the phone with the governor of South Dakota for 2.5 hours. When you're able to sit down and talk to a governor or a legislature or something of that matter for several hours and actually get answers, it's somebody worth fighting for, somebody worth voting for. And the American public do need to wake up. We've been so engrossed in our own lives and we don't see the pain and the suffering of other people. Am I still going to run for the Senate? There is an individual that I have been in talks with. He has announced that he is going to challenge Thune, and I don't want to split votes. So we're gonna. I'm going to endorse him, and then we are going to actually start raising money for him and his campaign. He's a little bit better known than I am here in South Dakota, but I always I've always said that I am willing to run if nobody else does because that's how much I detest John Thune. But he decided he wanted to run. He said South Dakota and the government needs a new face in politics. We need a new chapter. And I agree. You know, and I know in South Dakota, the law states that unless you are of sound mind and legal aptitude, you cannot sign your power of attorney over. So I think that needs to be a federal standard. Yeah. But in other news, I did have a disagreement with Donald Trump in one of his endorsements. Talk about personal preference, that's fine. But I do disagree with his endorsement of Greg Abbott from Texas. I think that Chad Prather would be a far better candidate. And not that it probably really matters to too many people, but that's who, if I lived in Texas, that's who I'd be endorsing right now. Greg Abbott needs to go. But I know people are, there's other topics that people want to discuss. So yeah, Okigal just sent this message. I have heard, well, yeah, she was talking about something else. In hospital, going to cath lab in the AM on 6/2. Prayers appreciated. So, as a South Carolinian, not a huge fan of Lindsey Graham. You know, there, if we could get like Graham Allen or one of those guys to actually run against him and beat him, that'd be awesome. But again, they don't want to cause a war within the Conservative Party. We just need to take it over. So, Graham Allen is running, yes, but he's not running for Senate. He's running for Congress. And I I wish him all the luck in the world. I am actually thinking about reaching out to his campaign and seeing about having him on. Mount Brooks, do you know Graham Allen personally? I'm just curious. Yeah, got to get those old farts out because there's new ones waiting to get on. Um, that is kind of awesome. That is one guy that I would love to actually have on the program. I am sending you a message. Yeah, we need. Okay. You know what? He, I want to talk to you. So I sent you a message, and I don't usually do it, but I actually gave you my personal cell phone number to reach out to me. But okay, yeah. I would love to sit down and talk to him. Nothing changes until the American public has a serious discussion about all the corruption in our government. These people are just busy stealing everyone's money and laughing all the way to the bank. Amen. But without getting the old, if you read the message, Mount, I don't care if you send him the number and have him call me, but I want to actually talk to you as well. So, but if we don't get the old guard out, or the old people that have been in Congress for decades, if we don't get them out, we don't have a chance of discussing corruption, because if you actually look at all the bills that have been passed in Congress, there's really nothing there except for bills that the old guard has let through. All the ones that have went to the waste bin or been tabled dealt with corruption, and they just couldn't get enough new people to actually vote on them, or enough of the old guard to actually vote on them, because it took away the power base. Weed out the rhinos locally. That is up to us. Corruption, you deal with corruption like Mayor Giuliani did. You start at the local level, you root it out, and you keep moving up the chain. When you go to take down a drug dealer, do you start at the very top, or do you work your way up from the low level drug pusher on the street? When you're going to tackle corruption, you have to tackle it from the bottom, and then continue to move forward and up. We need representatives that have a new way of thinking. Absolutely. A lot of people don't. But you see, you understand why the left is gaining so much power, or the Socialist Party is gaining so much power. You have a bunch of younger tool bags that literally, that's all they do, is they shout in their megaphone saying, "We need this, we need this," and the government just bends over and takes it and gives them what they want. Need to be smarter than the left. Use the left's tactics without the violence. Use the left's tactics. They're working. They're getting the grease. What is a plan forward? How do we implement change? The left has been doing this for decades. If you look all the way back to when some of you guys were kids, some of you guys weren't even born. When you look at the sheer amount of money that has been spent to keep these people in power, you want to know the fastest way to get rid of politicians? Take away their financial incentive. Vote for a pay decrease, not a pay increase. Again, I agree with this. Can't be afraid to call people out. We have a generation of cowards that have been in office on the Republican side for many years. They don't have spines. They flip-flop just as fast as the weather turns. The new breed of Republican that is coming in is something that I've never seen or have I ever heard about since the founding of this nation. We need to go back to this. We need to go back to the roots of this whole problem. Go back to the founding documents. Go back to the Declaration of Independence. Go back to the original Constitution. Get rid of these central banks. Kill the ability for these Congress people to make millions of dollars by running for office. Something to think about as we end the show. Guys, where do we place our trust? Do we place it in our politicians, in our government, or do we place our trust in God? The government has power because the people have given their power away. It is time to take back the power that we have given to the government for too long. For the last 150 years, we have ceded power to the federal government. It is time to bring it back home to the states. It is time to bring it back home to the place and where it belongs, with the people, for the people, and by the people. How do we make that happen? Well, we're going to cover a game plan. How do we make that happen? How do we take that plan, or how can we take a plan, implement it at a grassroots level, and actually talk to people and affect change? And somebody asked me if I have ever, and this came through on a Facebook post, a conservative basically called me a keyboard warrior and said, "You are probably one of those morons who are trampling on the flag or kneeling at the anthem." There's only two things I kneel for. I kneel at the cross, and I kneel for the fallen. No man is going to force me to kneel and cower. That is not in my nature. It's actually time to put together a plan and get it going. Take example from these young conservative voices, these young men and women that are rising up. Elise Stefanik. If I was to tell you that she is the second youngest person in Congress, you guys probably wouldn't believe me. She is my age. Do I agree with 100% of her politics? No, but she stands by her convictions and by the convictions of her constituents. It's time to go back to the founding. We're going to cover the steps, how and what the plan forward is from here, and we're gonna talk about that in depth tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So as always, guys, you have a pen and a microphone. Use them. The silent majority can no longer stay silent. God bless you guys. God bless the United States of America. And we will see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.